So you have run for city commission. I think once people see sometimes how the sausage is made in local government, it motivates them to get involved or run. And, you know, as I like to say, everyone's a nice guy. People, I think, for the most part, are well-intentioned. And but there are issues that come up, and inefficiencies or even outright corruption that come up in local government. In this situation, you've got a long-time problem with significant pollution impacting residents in the city of Sarasota. And this is with US Recycling. Tell us where the plant is and how you came to know about the problem.
Sure. I got involved, I've been involved with an organization called CCNA, which is a coalition of all the neighborhood associations in the city.
So the name CCNA is Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations.
Is a terrible name, but...
Oh, I like it, but go ahead.
It's descriptive.
That's right, it is.
So the CCNA had some outreach from neighborhoods, specifically Central Coconut, that had a problem that they've been battling for years. And the background of US Recycling is kind of interesting. Parallels Sarasota itself through all the growth phases.
Okay.
So right in the middle of, or on the side of Central Coconut, there is a district that had been zoned as industrial. Mm-hmm. And for years, for decades, it was low impact industrial. What prior to the site that US Recycling is on, there was a auto tow yard that the police always used. Okay. So even though it was industrial, it really had no impact on the residents. And for the people that are wondering where the location I'm talking about, it's on Industrial Drive, but think of it around the corner from Central Coconut, which is around the corner from 10th Street. So if you think of 10th and Central Coconut.
So that's a few blocks away from the 10th Street roundabout.
Yes.
Where the Van Wezel is, the Sunoco station. So it's a few blocks east.
Right. It's directly next to Mary Dean Park and adjacent to the Pines, which is an assisted living facility.
Which there's a lot of older people that are not in great health right there. So this air quality issue is impacting a vulnerable population that's right next door.
Yep. And for decades, the auto tow yard operated and life was good. Around 2015, they sold to a company, actually several corporate entities, but we'll refer to them as US Recycling, best known for it, who had alternative purpose for this, to actually use it as what's known as a cement recycling facility, which in essence, they take blocks of concrete that's been taken from demolition sites. They cart it over to this site, again, right next to a park, right across the street from a senior living facility. And outdoors, in a 3-acre yard, they have a giant crusher that just crushes this concrete. And if you want to visualize a chainsaw, what the dust spews out of the machine while it's operating. Well, for cement crushing, there's something known as fugitive dust. And when you think of fugitive dust, people think around the house, this soft, cuddly, light, airy thing.
What do you mean, dust?
Dust.
Oh, well, I don't think of it as cuddly, but go ahead. Yeah, but it's right.
This kind of dust is actually microscopic shards of rock that are small enough that become airborne. And in just a breezy day, it can travel a kilometer. And where we're sitting right now in Fogartyville, in the Rosemary district, it reaches that in just a light breeze. So I know you've seen maps of this, that almost the entire downtown can be affected by this dust in a windy day. And there's a lot of windy days in Sarasota.
There are. So this reminds me of the effort to keep the same kind of concrete crusher away from the celery fields.
Yep.
They still did build one, in my opinion, still too close to the celery fields, but they wanted to put it on public land that was, we called it the quad. So listeners of the show may remember this waste transfer facility that people just were up in arms that there would be very industrial development near what's become a bird sanctuary.
Yeah.
But it's equally outrageous, really, to have that kind of a facility where people live, right?
Absolutely. And again, across the street from a playground. Mm-hmm. So when there are videos of the neighbors just going to their backyard and taking their finger on a patio umbrella and just sprinkling the dust away. Wow. And again, this is shards of rock. So once it gets into your lungs, once it gets into your bloodstream, it never goes away.
Wow.
And the EPA considers this very hazardous material, that in just short-term exposure, of course, coughing and,
So within the zone, because you've developed, we're going to just walk through this process because you are working. This is not over. We're talking about your effort to have this plant relocated, shut down, that they shouldn't be operating in such a highly populated area. And it's also impacted other businesses near it to be able to conduct their business. But I just want to, before we get there, you've got a map, and people can find, is this map online? It is.
We've been posting it on Facebook. It's on the CCNA website now. Okay. Anyone that goes to CCNA, there's an article about it. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you it's a citywide problem.
Oh, yeah. So let me, I live on Golden Gate Point, and I was pretty shocked to see this map that on a windy day, which, as you say, happens frequently, in Sarasota, and it's certainly windy where I live pretty often, that there's a 3-kilometer span around this plant where this concrete dust travels on a windy day, and it extends down to like Bay Vista.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like.
Sure.
It extends out to not quite, past Tuttle.
Yep.
Is that past 301?
Yep.
It extends up toward the airport.
Yep.
So we're really talking about
the entire downtown.
The entire downtown.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, when you look at it, it's always talking about something is one thing, but when you look at this map, it's like everybody in the city proper, like the downtown area, really has a major health reason to see this facility removed.
Absolutely. And the zip code just north of the plant, so it doesn't help the listeners, but just over here, just north of the plant, has the worst rate of asthma in all of Florida. And we had done...
So we're talking about... if it's like 17th Street, 12th, up in that area.
The Bay Park. Yep.
South of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And so they have the worst rate of asthma in the state.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. Okay.
And that is why CCNA got involved, because this is a serious issue. Because it's also cumulative. Mm-hmm. If we are passive about it, long-term effects is lung cancer, COPD. It's known for it. We had done an informal survey around the nearby residents to see, has anyone experienced any of these symptoms? And we found dozens of families that have experienced symptoms that could be related to the toxic dust, the concrete dust.
Okay. Tell me about, you sent me some documentation. I've been really impressed with the monitoring that is being done. But you became aware of this how?
Well, so the Central Coconut neighborhood finally, after the plant really picked up steam, was fully in production in 2020, so right when COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And so while they were dealing with COVID, they were also dealing with this dust. And just in May, not getting any traction from any of the agencies. People were compassionate about the problem, but they weren't trying to solve it. Yeah. So the neighborhood...
Which essentially means nothing.
Yeah. In desperation, came to CCNA.
But we're not going to do anything.
Yep. So I'm in charge of really the task force, the committee in CCNA to tackle this problem. And we started just in May.
So the residents came to CCNA.
The residents came to CCNA and, in essence, asked the city for help, the Residents Association.
Yeah.
So with that, we started looking into it, and it became quite clear why this is a problem. That, again, all the government agencies understood that there was a problem and wanted to address it, but they didn't quite know how, because the insidious nature of this particular plant, of this particular pollution, is it falls through a lot of loopholes. For instance, all the listeners are probably wondering, if this is so dangerous, if the air is so toxic, why isn't there a clean air? Couldn't the county just come in and close it down because of that?
Yeah.
Well, the EPA has clean air regulations, the Clean Air Act. Mm-hmm. That is based upon the average 24-hour pollution. So if, going back to the analogy of a chainsaw, when you're running the chainsaw, dust is spewing all over the place. The moment you stop, it all settles down. The same thing with concrete crushing. So if they crushed for an hour and then stopped for the other 23, they would be below the EPA thresholds. So we realized that early. So one of the things you were talking about is CCNA set up a separate website and set up air sensors so that we could track in real time what the air quality is right now. So we would know, even if the county came back and said, well, when we take the daily average, it's not dangerous. Well, it was dangerous for 45 minutes or an hour. And if you're going to the park, if you're going to the Bay Park, if you're in Rosemary,
if you live there.
If you live there.
Right. You're
being exposed for an hour or 2 hours of hazardous conditions. Mm-hmm. So we started working with the county to try, and again, they were very sympathetic, but we were trying to figure out ways that they could apply some enforcement and use the regulations and the tools that they had for this type of operation, because the Clean Air Act as a framework just didn't cut it.
Yeah. What about OSHA? Is that something you guys have thought about?
We haven't.
And that, I think, is Occupational Safety Health Administration. I'm not sure if I've totally got that right, but they monitor workplace conditions, and I'm just curious.
We haven't gone with OSHA, and I am, when you bring that up, I'm curious about the workers themselves. Yeah. Because we started...
the workers nearby.
Oh, certainly the workers nearby.
Yeah.
But we started to then, pull all the different threads, one being the air quality, and then working with the county to, with a combination of air sensors as well as cameras, and actually night vision cameras, because we found out that at times...
you guys are all over it.
Well, US Recycling turned out to be bad actors. They didn't quite care about how their operations affected the surrounds. So we would see heavy industrial trucks arrive prior to permitted hours and coming after permitted hours, hence the night vision cameras to try and record those. And with a combination of that as well as the sensors, what the county was able to do is start seeing plumes of dust being taken away by the trucks. So while they couldn't issue a citation under the Clean Air Act, they could cite them for hazardous operations with the trucks and not performing the proper cleaning and not doing any of the remediation that they should.
Yeah.
And the county came in and issued some violations as a result of
So, okay, I'm just wondering in general, because we're going to need ways to dispose of concrete, right? That's just going to happen. And it's interesting that they call it US Recycling, because the name itself conjures up good things. Oh, we're taking care of the environment. We're repurposing. We're reusing. But it would seem to me that this kind of function in an open air, right? If you're crushing this concrete and the dust is toxic and causes lung disease, then why would it be open ever at all? Why don't they have an enclosure and this stuff be behind walls, and even their own workers, you stick the concrete in there, you shut the door, and you're not breathing it in.
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't they do that?
They could.
Okay.
This becomes part of the vestiges left over from city code that's now obsolete. So, believe it or not, this particular operation can only occur in the city bounds. Normally, for county, they have requirements that any type of crushing facility like this has to be on a much bigger lot and has to be much farther away from any residential.
So basically the city code is antiquated. And these guys knew that. And they bought in right next to a downtown area. Now, why isn't the city passing a new code?
Well, they could, but that's probably a separate show, which is SB 180. They have two problems. One, this property they had realized was improperly zoned for the future land use. So what used to be industrial is now residential, but they can't, because this business got in there before the change, they're grandfathered in. So the owners knew that they could operate a facility like this very, very close to all the downtown construction. And the reason why they continue to disregard the harmful effects of the community is because it's so profitable. And why is it so profitable? Because anyone doing demolition, the biggest cost for that is carting away the demolition. So if they're demoing it downtown, if they can
and the plant is right there.
Right there, let's go there rather than traveling 1 more mile. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you've just joined us, you're listening to The Detail, and my guest is Ron Cashton. We're talking about his efforts to spearhead the removal, or I don't know, if not removal, or change of US Recycling, which is operating a concrete crushing plant in downtown, right north of downtown Sarasota. The toxic dust from this concrete plant travels from the airport out to Tuttle, and down to Bay Vista. Yeah. If you live in one of those areas, or someone you love does, or you work in one of those areas, chances are at some point you're breathing this in.
Right.
And so, Ron,
I would say if you're listening to this show, this plan affects you.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Because of the broadcast
right.
area.
And for where you go. If you go to the Van Wezel, you're affected by this. If you go to the downtown farmers market, you're affected by this.
Yeah. Yeah, if you do anything in downtown Sarasota, if you or it's 3 kilometers, 3 mile vicinity, if you have people you love who do that, if you go see the doctor or whatever you do there, this impacts you. And not that far from the hospital either. The hospital is just outside.
Yep.
This zone.
Right.
Yeah.
So you raise the question, well, why didn't the city just stop this or make
change their rule? Yeah.
Right. So the city, when they first applied for the permit, had reviewed it and tried to require them to do an enclosure. And Development Services came back, and in their opinion, they said that they couldn't. And because it was still zoned industrial, they were still allowed, in our books, they're allowed to do...
honestly, Ron, this is where I get fed up with this city.
Yeah.
Okay? And this SB 180, I've done whole shows on SB 180, and the state is out of control. The state is trying to, in their totalitarian, stupid, authoritarian thinking, sorry, but that's how it is these days. They are trying to reach down to the local level, which is exactly what Republicans say they don't want, right? And I've voted Republican many times. But they're reaching down and trying to dictate to localities what they can and cannot do. It's very pro-corporation, which of course funds all these politicians. And the problem we have, is that SB 180 basically is preempting local control of land use. Now, here's where I get annoyed, especially with the city commission. Speak up. Why aren't you talking about this? I don't care if own your power. Go ahead and make the rule. If it gets shut down, it gets shut down. But for God's sake, why don't you move forward to protect the health of your constituents?
Yep.
And so, because most of the stuff is tried in the court of public opinion, right? And if the state has the audacity to throw people under the bus by not protecting their health, if they have the audacity to come in and try to nullify what the city's doing, everybody gets to see that.
Yeah. But
the city acting like a little scared, mouse and not doing anything is pathetic.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done with my rant. Go on.
Well, so a couple of things about that. City management was sympathetic, and for the people that want to be fiscally responsible, they might be upset with this, but the city, the only recourse that they felt that they could do is improve the road. So there is a dead-end road that is tiny, that the city spent $400,000 to basically make this a super uber industrial road, almost to the level of an airport runway, so that the trucks wouldn't bounce on the road. There's only one commissioner.
Okay, so you're telling me that our tax dollars went to a road to make it easier for this company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. To try, because the city was desperate. There is one commissioner that has been a resolute, consistent voice against this, which is...
Let me guess. Jen Ahern Koch. Okay.
So back in...
Thank you, Jen.
Yes, thank you, Jen. So back in 22, the residents were at their wits' end. They've been going on for 2 years, breathing in this, not knowing what to do. They spoke in front of the commission, and at the time, I think we had one of the worst commissions we've had maybe forever, but for a while. Even they realized the dangers of this, and they had tasked back then the city attorney Bob Fournier to look into legal recourse. What could the city do legally to stop this? Well, 1 month later, there was a rumor that US Recycling was going to be sold. And Mr. Fournier came in front of the city commission and said, you know, you came up with these ideas that I can look into, but it's going to be a lot of work for me to research all this, and they're going to sell.
Oh, gee.
So do you really want to spend the effort? And the city commission back then said, well, you know, if they're going to sell, why bother? Let us not do that. You know, fast forward to now, I was able to take that commission meeting and document over 11 pages supporting fining or doing legal action to cite them as a public health nuisance.
So
which
there
I
were
think
things
were
they could do.
They were definitely things that they could do, and they were things that they could do back then. One of the problems with taking this legal action is in order to cite some...
Sorry, this legal action?
There is... So people say, well, why don't you do eminent domain and just buy the site? Well, if you buy the site, then the city has to use the site for eminent domain. One of the easiest recourses, well, one of the most straightforward recourses, is a public health nuisance. If a business is operating to the detrimental harm of its community, there are laws, and Florida's quite good with this, that they can go in and consider them a nuisance to the community, to the public large, and shut them down. And so that, out of all the different legal recourses, what they were thinking about, oh, let's go buy them, let's do eminent domain, the public health nuisance seems like the most pragmatic step forward. But in order to do a public health nuisance, you have to let all the government agencies attempt to regulate it. So while maybe in 22 we didn't have enough evidence, now we absolutely do. Because every time US Recycling was cited, every time there was a violation, they would say, oh, we're going to do better, we're going to remediate, we're going to put in all these additional safeguards.
And they don't.
They did none of them.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite is...
Lie. I mean, that's really, well, what is that if you say you're going to do it and you just don't?
Right. Well, my favorite is the idea of doing wheel washing. Something as simple as before the trucks leave, you can wash the wheels. It's like a little mini car wash so that the dust doesn't leave the facility. And they promised the county and the state that they would install that back in 22 and in 23 and in 24 and just recently in 25. So, and I recently checked because they had in one of their communications say, we're actively working on this. We're working with the city and we're putting in permits to finally do our wheel washing. Well, I requested with the Freedom of Information Act, are there any permits currently in process? Yep, there were none.
God. None. So I live in a neighborhood where there's just so much construction right now. And one of the things, and I'm actually not seeing enough of this now that we're talking about this, but in the past, we'd have folks actively hosing down, when there was stuff happening, dust in the air from concrete or demolition. They would be there with a hose to hose down the dust. That's something these folks could be doing.
Yep.
But from what I'm reading of your documents, they're not.
Well, they're required to. And at times they would. Shockingly, when the county would call up and say, we're going to do an inspection on Thursday, they would show up and the sprinklers on these grinders would be operating. However, when they would do surprise inspections, not unsurprisingly, they would find out some of them wouldn't be functional. And
because I'll tell you, that's quite a water bill if you're having to use these sprinklers every time. It's going to cost some money.
Right.
And so what you're saying is they're on when they know someone's watching.
Yep.
But when they're not being watched, the evidence shows
time and time
again.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. One of my favorites is, so this has been an all-hands approach. We've, as a community, approached every agency that we could think that could help enforce the existing laws. And we were lucky enough to get the attention of the Florida Highway Patrol, that we say these heavy industrial trucks are going through. We don't think they're safe. Could you do some inspections? And the Florida Highway Patrol actually put up a inspection operation for just 3 hours on Central Coconut. And in 3 hours, they did 12 inspections, which they thought was a lot. And out of those 12 inspections, 6 of them were in violations. And they said that 50% of what they inspect in violation is extraordinary. But there was one vehicle that was so dangerous, so unsafe, they took off the road.
So you're talking about a vehicle, a truck that is carrying this dust-laden cargo, right?
Yes. So it's carrying slabs of concrete.
So this truck, we're talking about this localized area. I would think such a truck would have to have a tarp, a wet tarp, something to keep all the dust down. That doesn't seem to be the case. The Florida Highway Patrol took this truck off the road. But you got to think if this kind of vehicle with this kind of toxic cargo is traveling, up and down 301, out University, out Fruitville, this affects more than just and downtown.
To give you, and yes, these trucks should be covered. And some of the citations were that. And we have, with our night vision camera, we see trucks periodically being uncovered, which they're not supposed to do. But this one truck only had its bed attached to the frame of the truck on one side. So the bed, which is the part of the truck that is carrying all the weight,
was not stable.
So unstable, it was taken off the road. And guess who owns that truck?
Who?
US Recycling. It was their company truck.
Oh.
So that just shows you the level of care that's going into it. Right.
The lack of care. COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is a horrible condition to have to deal with. Of course, asthma is also, you're just not able to breathe. Have you thought about getting the National Lung Association involved? I mean, if you've got the highest rate of asthma in the vicinity, the highest rate of asthma in the state of Florida, right? It seems that health piece, one of the things it seems like is marrying the air quality monitoring that you're doing with the incidence of COPD and asthma is an important medical study. I mean, that belongs in medical journals and places, organizations like the National Lung Association, or maybe, pulmonology journals. Yeah. It's like, this is a horrible thing, but it also should be studied.
And there's two local organizations that have been trying to address this. One being in the private sector is Dr. Lisa Merritt's Multicultural Health Institute. And she's been trying to do studies, trying to link, because we see the symptoms going on, the symptomatic issues with the residents.
Yeah.
But trying to get causality. The other, and Dr. Merritt's been working with the county, and the county's health department is very aware of this. The problem runs into trying to connect the dots. Because these issues, COPD and asthma and pneumonia and lung cancer, which are all known symptoms of long-term exposure to this. Connecting that exactly to the concrete dust is challenging. You almost need a biopsy in order to pull that off.
A lung biopsy.
A lung biopsy.
Yeah.
So they've been doing studies.
See, I don't know. And like, do you have to be? I mean, it's so obvious, right? That I mean, if this dust is a known carcinogen, if it's a known factor in COPD, and we're, if you just joined us, we're talking about the dust emanating from US Recycling's downtown concrete crushing plant that is operating because there is antiquated code ordinances in the city of Sarasota. This thing really the code should outlaw something like this in such a populated area. But for whatever reason, we don't have that, and we're dealing with toxic levels of dust.
And so with the all-hands-on approach, with the dust, when you think of it settling to the ground, well, what effect does that have with stormwater?
I was just going to read that. Yeah. So we had reached out to the Suncoast Waterkeeper, which is a great local organization. They do fantastic advocacy. Shout out to Justin.
Shout out to Justin Bloom.
Thanks for your work.
Yes.
He's one of the people we're thankful for. You, Justin,
absolutely.
There's so many people. Okay.
Yes.
So Suncoast Waterkeepers.
So Justin had this on his radar. And for us giving...
He's within that zone. He lives within that zone.
Yep. And so he waited for a particularly rainy couple of days because you had to get groundwater in order to do testing. And we were lucky in the spring. We had about a week or 2 weeks of heavy rain.
Okay.
And Justin and the Waterkeeper went out, his team, did testing, found out that they were hazardous conditions, and is currently litigating with US Recycling on behalf of the community because, yes, they've also polluted the stormwater as a result of their
Which goes
actions.
Out to the bay.
Goes out to Whitaker Bayou.
Yeah. So it's not like you're out if they're using sprinklers the way they're supposed to, it's not like we're out of the woods because this stuff is getting into the ground and getting out into the bay water. So that would be contaminating plant and wildlife.
Yes.
And again, really speaks to the need for this kind of a recycling plant to be enclosed. And this dust captured.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to pivot to actually a happier thought because we realized early on that the only way we're truly going to solve this, looking at all the loopholes with the environmental regulations, is by getting someone else to purchase the property and use it for something different.
Yay. Okay.
And so with that, we thought as a committee, what would be the best use of this? What would help the community more than anything else? And one of the top issues in the community is affordable housing and truly workforce housing, that $30,000 to $70,000 annual income family that can't afford to live in downtown Sarasota or anywhere near downtown Sarasota. And of course that adds to the traffic. It causes community-wide issues. So we had reached out, we had heard that there was a developer who's well known in Florida, but not particularly in the city of Sarasota, McDowell Partners. And back in 22, they were part of the rumor that had shown interest in purchasing the site. And that transaction really never took legs.
They built affordable housing.
True workforce housing. So this is quality housing for all the people that you would want housing for. So this is your service, restaurant workers, landscapers, teachers, cops, firefighters, all the, when you think of affordable housing, these are the people, the backbone of the community. That's all they build. And the way that they do that is they get private funding, but they look for public grants because it's the public grants that allow them to build the workforce housing. That's how a commercial developer can do that. So when we reached out to them, they had very early sketches about this. And because the community reached out to them, McDowell had said... CCNA. Yeah. McDowell had said, in their experience in affordable housing, most of the time, a good environment for them to try and advocate and build housing is when the public is neutral. Typically, the public is adversarial because people fear change.
Well, there is, I know it's a kind of a pejorative term, but the NIMBY, right, is a lot of people, I think, very mistakenly get upset if they feel that there's going to be affordable housing in their neighborhood. And to which I say, where are your kids going to live? Well, where are you going to live when you're older? Yes. But that's a phenomenal solution.
And this is housing. Some of their other projects have tennis courts and swimming pools. This is family housing that people imagine that we grew up with.
Anybody
that no
would love
exists.
to live in. It's
absolutely
and see, here's the thing. Just grateful to you, Ron Cashton, on this Thanksgiving Day. Look at the solutions that a community can come up with. You spearheaded this. CCNA is a, community organization that took this on, that did the monitoring. And for those listening, your government needs you to be involved. And I look to this and go, well, why didn't they think of this? Right. And that is definitely a conversation. However, the importance of people taking action and getting involved. And so, Ron Cashton, on this Thanksgiving Day, we are lucky as a community to have you and CCNA, all the leaders of CCNA, Kelly Brown, Flo Entler, all of the people.
Laura Korberg. Yep.
You can name them all.
Yeah.
And if you've never gone to a CCNA meeting, it's the first Saturday of every month at the community. It's out near the Van Wezel, right? Is it the Bayfront? I forget what the name of the
it's now at the Garden Club because they're still renovating.
It's at the Garden Club. But man, this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
And we are seeing I'm hoping more people appreciate this kind of advocacy. It makes a big difference.
So when we reached out to McDowell, they realized that downtown Sarasota desperately needs this.
Yes.
It's a huge lack, and there's very little opportunity for this to occur. So they reached out to US Recycling and asked how much did they want for the land. And for months they were negotiating back and forth. Now, in order for McDowell to be successful in a project, part of their funding has to come from public funds, from public grants. Grants like Resilient SRQ that the county commission is currently allocating for new multifamily affordable housing. So there was a deadline for McDowell in order to file their grant application. And the owner of US Recycling just kept on hemming and hawing, so wouldn't commit to a deal. So a week before the grant applications were due, they still hadn't committed to an offer. And McDowell finally said, we will match your offering price. So what the owners were asking, McDowell said, okay. And the owners still sat and said, well, let's still think about it. So McDowell went above the asking price. And still, the owner wasn't sure. It happened the Friday before, a week before the deadline. Justin Bloom filed his lawsuit.
Yeah.
And I think...
that'll make people move. Yeah.
So with 48 hours...
And that's the Waterkeeper, Suncoast Waterkeeper lawsuit. Yes. And so this is like you have to tackle the problem from many fronts.
Yes.
They absolutely deserve to be sued because they're not doing what they're supposed to do, that you've gotten these readings and
but it takes a nonprofit to sue a bad actor in order for them to do the right thing. And again, they're getting the offer that they were hoping for. So the owners decided within 48 hours, okay, we accept McDowell's offer. Now, McDowell has to write the grant.
And they're going to build affordable housing.
Right. Yeah, and apply for the grant to the county within that 48-hour window. They reached out to us, and I'll give the city tremendous credit for this, because we asked, in a 6-hour time frame, could the commissioners write a recommendation letter supporting McDowell's grant application to the county? And Commissioner Ahern Koch and interim city manager Dave Bullock both wrote letters, and McDowell was floored because they never get, that kind of response. That kind of response, that the community.
So shout out to Dave Bullock and Jen Ahern Koch.
Yeah. But one of the reasons why I was excited to come on this show is it's now a political decision whether this goes through, because on January 13th, the county is going to decide, going to allocate the remaining funds for the multifamily affordable housing as a result of Resilient SRQ.
Is this COVID money?
No, this is actually HUD money from the hurricane relief.
Oh, okay. FEMA money.
FEMA money.
Okay.
So right now we're asking the public to go out and sign a petition to raise your voice to say, yes, we want true workforce housing in downtown Sarasota. We want to get rid of this decade-long problem that we're having that's harming the community, harming downtown. And it's just the public's voice. If you go to sarasotapublic.com, you'll see that there's a petition there. Just sign it. Okay. Because if the county commissioners see public support, that'll differentiate this from all the other grant applications. There are a ton of grants going for this money, and we want to separate.
But this is a large piece of land that if it were dedicated to affordable housing near downtown Sarasota, what a game changer in people's lives.
It'll be housing for 158 families. Wow. That's what they're anticipating. And again, that's a game changer. The rule of thumb is that it takes one support family for every 10 market rate houses. So think that you're getting workforce housing that'll support 1,500 new.
So let me put that a different way. For every 10 luxury condos, you need at least one affordable home in the vicinity to support the necessary workers to provide services, whether it's restaurant workers, nurses, doctor's office staff, police, firefighters, teachers. You need at least one of those folks for every 10, high end. And this would make a dent in the need. 158 units would really help.
Because at some point, the city won't be sustainable. If we can't get the workforce housing, if we can't get the people to come here.
We're already there.
We might be.
It's really tough. Right?
And this is just an exceptional opportunity.
So what can people do again?
They can go to sarasotapublic.com and just sign the petition. Because if we can get enough names for the grant, it's supporting the grant. It's saying yes to workforce housing, true workforce housing. Families between $30,000 and $70,000. 1, 2, 3 bedrooms in downtown, and that will get rid of a site that is actually harming the community.
That is the highest rate of asthma in the state of Florida is just north of this facility. So everybody who cares about affordable housing, and I know you're all out there, I hear about this all the time. If there's one thing you can do, this weekend to help your community with affordable housing, you can go ahead. If you choose, you can sign this petition so that our FEMA money can go to building affordable housing.
You know, while you're looking in the oven to see how the turkey's doing, SarasotaPublic.com.
And you can read about the issue there, I'm sure, and decide if you want to sign it. So Ron Cashton, we've just got a minute left. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the time.
Because this would not have happened. I know this without you, without CCNA, this solution would not have come about. And so, thank you. And
thank you.
And I think I have seen, and I consider it very regrettable, an unfortunate disrespect for activists, for community activism, but that's what citizen engagement is.
Yep.
And that's how solutions come about. Our government needs us to be involved. We need to be involved to ensure we have a democracy, and it's people like you that make that difference. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Enjoy your friends and family. Enjoy whatever you're doing today. We appreciate you listening. Thank you for supporting the station. And you've been listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5, LPFM in Sarasota, Florida, and WBPV 100.1 LPFM in Bradenton, Florida. Enjoy your Thanksgiving.